Welcome. I'm Larry Olsen, and this is the Brain Vault Podcast. Did you know that the thoughts you're thinking right now are shaping the life you'll live tomorrow? Well, in this podcast, we just don't talk about mindset. We decode the blueprint behind behavior, performance, and possibility. This is where science meets real-world strategy, and your brain stops running on autopilot. If you're ready to turn default thinking into intentional living, you're in the right place. Well, I want to welcome all of you to the Brain Vault Podcast, where science meets success. And I'm very excited today because I know all of us reach a point sometimes in our life where we just don't know whether we got it, and we've had so many setbacks that we just wonder how much more can we endure before we either change paths, give up, or unfortunately mark ourselves as incapable. So I wanted to ask all of you now, all of the listeners, what if the limits you believe are real are actually just stories your brain has learned to accept? Today, we're not just talking about resilience. We're talking about redefining what's possible at the edge of human performance. Because my guest today didn't just challenge the idea of limitations, they obliterated it. Kyle Pease and Brent Pease are more than endurance athletes. They're co-founders of the Kyle Pease Foundation, a movement that's transforming what inclusion looks like in sports and in life. Now, check this out. Together, they've completed over 150 races, including multiple Ironman events, making history on one of the world's toughest stages. But this isn't just a story about racing. It's about identity, it's about belief, and it's about what happens when one person refuses to accept the limits placed on another. Because when the brain sees differently, performance follows. And I'm honored to welcome Kyle and Brent to the Brain Vault Podcast. Thank you two for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Loved the questions and intro there.
All right. Well, let's start out with this. Take me to the exact moment or what started this quest where the world saw limitations, but you saw possibility and you made a decision that changed everything. What were the circumstances that created that transformation?
So there's a short version of the story that I'm going to lead Kyle to because we've shared this a lot, and it's it's not something I get tired of sharing because it's a big part of who we are. But I was doing my first Ironman in 2010, and our whole family came up, and I was 27 years old, I think, and they were watching this day unfold. And Ironman's a 140.6 mile race. It's 2.4 miles in the water. It's 112 of biking. And then you've got to run a marathon. And Kyle didn't really know what he was coming to watch. I mean, he knew that I had been doing triathlons for a few years. He knew it was swim, bike, run. But it was this huge thing. It was, and quite frankly, I could already feel the transformation that was happening. But during the race, there was this moment where Kyle ended up next to this woman, Betty, a dear friend of ours. And Betty swam at college. Betty is a cancer survivor. Betty's just an incredible person. And so she was very engaging with Kyle. And he was asking her peppering her with all these questions. And meanwhile, my mom's standing there too. And she's just getting nervous because all these people, we were with 6 people racing that day, and they're all going by. And it's where's Brent? Where's Brent? And of course, my mother is very proud of me. And she thinks that I'm the greatest athlete of the 2,800 out there. And finally, she stops her conversation with Kyle and she looks and she puts her hand on my mom and she says, he's exactly where he's supposed to be. And I think everybody knew in that moment what they meant. Betty knew that I was going through just a personal transformation, that I was discovering this new world for myself and living my life in a different way. But so did Kyle. But the other part that Kyle saw was what everybody else was going through too. And Ironman is just this series of ups and downs. I mean, you go through like 112 miles on the bike. At some point, you get tired. You want to get off the bike. Like there's these just mental strains that occur throughout the day. And so Kyle was witnessing that. And that's, I wanted to tee that up because it just like you talking just in the intro there made me think of that. Like there's more to this story, that it was this whole day that, Kyle was like, what's he going through? What's it like out there? And why is this so hard? And, and he, meanwhile, like he's
And
leading up to this one moment.
excuse me, Kyle at
Yeah.
this point was just a spectator?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I'm glad you did, because that's a good place for Kyle to jump in and land the plane for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My whole life has been an Ironman. And I was just amazed at what not only Brent did that day, but all the other athletes did that day. And it really reminded me of my life. And when I go through the ups and the downs, and after Brent completed his day, we both sat down and I started asking Brent a whole lot of questions. And then my last question is really how this journey got started was, can people in wheelchairs do Ironman? So that one question and curiosity opened up the possibilities for us to do something together with somebody that you love to show your community and your family what you could do and what is truly possible.
Mm-hmm. And Kyle, what really transformed you from being an observer to now being a participant? What was that like for you, that first opportunity?
Yeah, it was truly amazing. It was one of those moments that I will never forget for the rest of my life, because my brother allowed my dream of being an athlete, and he helped me turn that into a reality. And so it gets truly amazing, and I'm very grateful.
I mean, he's leaving out one small detail that I want for the listeners. Like the other piece of this is that like we had chased sports for a really long time for Kyle, and we had done all these different things, and um all of the sports, like this was in the 80s and 90s. And so
Okay.
you would say things like wheelchair baseball or wheelchair basketball, and you were effectively saying like, hey, everybody here can't do the thing anyway, so we're just going to call it a wheelchair sport. But when you do an Ironman, when you do a 5K or a 10K, there's no like limits because of who you are. There's no change in the rules. It's you are doing what everybody else is going to do today. And that was one of the big unlocks for us when we did this together, is that's exactly it. As we were doing it together, we were experiencing it together.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing how much we can make our mind up about something we haven't participated in and where we're capable or not capable. And it's amazing having the opportunity, having so many excuses. I was blessed to have a sister 3 years older than myself that was born mentally delayed.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such an attitude and a belief about what she wasn't capable of instead of what is she capable of.
Right.
And unfortunately, she didn't have the kind of brother that you are to Kyle to really break through those barriers. I found myself at the time just learning to adapt and learning how to just do the best I could with the situation that she had. So it took a lot of courage for both of you to really stand up to society and what its beliefs are, because so many people allow that to define them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they believe it. And when you got all the experts in the world telling you what's possible and what's not possible. So you had this first opportunity together.
Right.
What transpired out after that? What kind of conversations, if you remember, did the two of you had when you kind of debriefed from that first experience together?
It was about, I mean, well, everything was about the triathlon. So Kyle saw a triathlon. We wanted to do an Ironman. We thought we had to just start with like an Olympic distance triathlon. So that very first race and the next one after that were all about like, well, now we have to do this and we have to get ready for this. And so it was like, it was this hyper focus on, the triathlon, but like when we look back on it, what I would say is that what we were both learning is, how to build a process and how to focus on that in terms of just getting ready. You want to create a new narrative and a new story. Like preparation is part of that. Like
Yeah.
to help, shift the mind, you've got to go put in the energy and the work. And so those early conversations weren't this, it wasn't like race one, total mindset shift or total change. It was like, okay, now let's talk about it. And what was evolving through that, because we raced a few times, was Kyle just his eyes kept getting bigger and bigger because of what he was experiencing. And so that
Yeah.
very first triathlon, the real unlock there wasn't that we had figured everything out or that we were these amazing athletes. It was that we wanted other people to experience this with us. And
Yeah.
Kyle, to his credit, like, I mean, we say nearly instantly, because I think we were still in Florida and Kyle said, we really need to have other people do this. We should start a foundation. And that
Okay.
really became the beginning of what this is. And of course, the athletics piece continued. Kyle and I continued to do that stuff, but it was about what was being built, through those efforts.
And what
And
did
now,
that I'm sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
no, and now the foundation is 50 years old. So that one question has really turned into um helping people really see they're possible.
Hmm.
We have over last year in 2025, we have over 170 athletes across over 1,300 finish lines. Um, so it's our battle cry now, and we want to see everyone that comes into the foundation. We want them to succeed and show what is possible for them.
Hmm. And what the law of reciprocity, what goes around comes around. What did you experience, Kyle, not only by what their inspiration they received by watching you, what did you experience by getting to know them and watching them?
Um, I was curious that I gained many more family members along the way, even though they're not my immediate family, that they are a part of me, and they are a part of the foundation DNA, and we couldn't do it without them, and they couldn't do it without us.
Mm.
So we are eternally grateful for their trust and their loyalty to really make this foundation successful.
Ah. And what kind of transformations have you gone through, physically and mentally with all of this behind you now, and a lot in front of you, of course?
Yeah, so I live with cerebral palsy, and I've been in a wheelchair for 41 years of my life, and I know no other way.
Ah.
But because of this endurance sport that I love, that the sky is the limit for me, and
Hmm.
this opportunity has tapped into my inner strength, and because of my brother and because of what he has shown me and what he has given to me with his physical talents, that I'm just so grateful that I even asked that question, because who knows where we would be if I did not ask that question.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And what have you, Brent? What do you think has been the biggest opportunity for you going through this with your brother? For as far as
Um,
your own self reflection and your own, inner voice.
we talked about this, Con and I were talking about this earlier today, that, for much of Kyle, well, for all of Kyle's life, he's had to constantly be in this state of vulnerability. I need help going to the bathroom. I need help eating. Like he can never, it's very hard for him to internalize something going on with him because of what he needs help with. Um, I think the greatest thing for me, the greatest shift for me is, me learning how to be that person.
Hmm.
I think when I was a kid, I think it was easier to just lean into helping Kyle without saying, "Hey, this is hard for me too." I
Mhm.
may not have the disability, but I'm living with it and I don't know what to do. So I'll
Okay.
just be like, but now I've learned, especially through the racing, like there's nowhere for me to hide on a course. Kyle's 125 pounds. The bike is, 60, 70 pounds. It's nearly 400 pounds of human steel when we're on that thing. Like
Hmm.
a lot of weight to push 112 miles, and so when I'm at my worst, instead of just sitting there and pretending I can do it on my own, I can look at Kyle and say, "Hey, I need your help.
Hmm.
I need you to lend something to me. If I'm going to push the pedals, what can you help me with?"
Hmm.
And it's where he certainly leans in. We could get into that. But I think that for me has been the greatest shift to be able to, just raise my hand or open my mouth and say, "Hey, this is hard. I could use a hand."
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. That when with the leaders that I work with, which is primarily what I do in
Hmm.
performance-driven neurology, is about mindset and how the brain and mind work together, and how easy it is to program ourselves into kind of the little pity party. And, they say if you had a friend that talked to you the way that you talk to yourself sometimes, would you hang around with a friend very long?
That's right.
You know? And we can have that kind of
Yeah,
we have such a high expectation in our own mind that we sometimes don't even allow ourselves to meet it.
that's right.
And yet one of the things that I wanted to find out more from you 2 is how easy it is to play the victim
Hmm.
and live the life of if only. And, it's even people that are listening to this can go, "Oh, yeah, that's really tough." And, but he's had it his whole life. I can see where he didn't have any choice but to accept it. When you are dealing with whatever we are dealing with, and we get caught up in making it so much bigger than what it is, compared to Kyle, for instance,
Hmm.
um, what have you 2 learned about? Is there any tactful way to tell somebody to get over themselves and start to
Yeah.
recognize? Because most leaders feel that they are letting the world down if they ask for help. They think it's admitting a weakness. It's not being the leader that everybody can count on.
So
And we know one of the greatest things that we can learn to do is to be able to ask for help. So,
that's right.
how do you help people transition into moving from not wanting to seeing the value in doing it, actually taking action on it?
Yeah, so I want to give Kyle another lead in here.
Okay.
So we're recording this after the Masters, and there was a great Jack Nicklaus story that I heard this past weekend that they were playing. I think it was the Masters, and it was windy and it was cold, or there was something going on, and the course was just playing really tough. And he turned to the playing partner. He's like, "Isn't this awesome?" And it's like, so often, like, it would just be really easy for us to be like, "Oh my God, what was it like growing up with a disability?" And you're like, "Yeah, God, it was awful."
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I got to tell you, like, my life was terrible, and it's like, it, why does it like the simple shift of just saying we get to do this,
Mm,
like
mm,
we get to suffer today.
hmm, mhm,
There's these moments when we do what we do where it's like, okay, here comes the pain.
mhm.
And that it's like Kyle looks forward to that,
Yeah,
because it makes him it makes him feel like an athlete because
mm,
he's experiencing it just like I am. Like his neck hurts, his back hurt, his legs are killing him. Like he's questioning if he can keep going on. And it's just like, you know what? I get to be here today. And I
hmm,
just think if we can sometimes look at the things that we get to do versus what we don't have, it's a very simple and subtle shift that might even wake you up to the ability to ask for help too. But,
uh,
I wanted to
No, you're
share.
doing great.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you have more on the,
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, and I have said this on other interviews, is the hardest part of my day really is when somebody gets me out of bed and they put
Mm.
me in my wheelchair. And for 5 seconds of my day, I get the reality where I need to ask people for everything.
Uh,
And I know there are some things that I don't want to do that. There are some things that I wish that it would be better for me. But
oh,
that's not the platform that I have, and
mm,
that's not the platform that I was given. So I have to make the best out of my situation. And I choose to live life with possibilities than with the negatives.
mhm,
Because the negatives outweigh the positives. Or no, the positive outweighs the negative. And I'm not gonna go anywhere if I settle on the negative. So
mm.
I choose every day to look at my life as I get to do this, and I know I have to do this. Like Brett said so wonderfully.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. That is just such a powerful shift as to why me to God, am I blessed to have this opportunity right now?
Right.
That mind shift is amazing what it does to our own morale.
Yeah.
And, most people aren't aware that the brain doesn't know whether we're talking to ourselves or somebody else is. The mind does, but the brain just takes orders. So when we are
Maybe.
able to make that shift, we have
Yeah.
to start looking now for why, this rainy, blustery, windy day is such a great place to be, for instance.
Yeah. For sure.
Um, and
It's
it's
hard to do, but like you said at the beginning, like we're a product of the stories we tell ourselves. And as
amen.
you just said, like our brain can't often tell the difference between do and don't. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
say don't have a good time, your brain may hear have a good time. And before you know it, you're like, I'm walking into this party that somebody made me go to, and I'm gonna stand here and not have a good time. And before you know it, you're like, this is actually quite all right. And the same could be said for us in our world of like, you know, don't quit might be
mhm,
the mantra you tell yourself, but your brain
mhm.
keeps hearing quit, quit, quit. Like this is
Ah,
hard, right? And it's like,
yep.
what about saying like go one more, right?
Mm,
What is a different way to frame that conversation with yourself?
mhm,
And it's the beauty of what we do is that often, like I can take one element of it. It's our greatest advantage. We're at a disadvantage racing because we have 200 plus pounds of human to power through a course, but what they don't have is a partner who, when
mm,
you say, if you're willing to say, I'm in trouble, I'm hurting,
mm,
that Kyle can then focus on one thing and one thing only, and is to help me see what I can do.
Yeah.
mm,
Like I remember one race where he was just screaming at me because I was in such a dark place and I was cramping and I was hopping on one leg and I was grunting and I couldn't even express what I was experiencing.
mm,
And Kyle just started screaming, believe, believe,
mm.
believe. And he kept saying it over and over. He didn't stop until I like calmed down. And like, could I have done that in the moment? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Not in the state I was in, because that conversation, if I was by myself, was you're cramping, your day's over. You'll
yeah.
never finish this race. Your body is broken. Right. Instead of just saying like, so I think it's a powerful tool if you can work at it and learn how to access that.
Have you ever had other runners or other people say you're the one who has the advantage because you get to run with a coach? Has anyone ever dared tell you that?
No, I don't think they think of it that way though. Like we have a
Okay.
wonderful coach. Swam at Notre Dame, competed as an athlete, but just is a very, patient and understanding human.
Uh-huh.
And, he saw what we were going through before we saw what we were going through.
Uh,
And
uh,
and he certainly helped us tap into this. I mean, we would have meetings separately before
Okay.
our races. I would go meet with him, and all my anxieties would come out, and the things I thought, like the stories I was already telling myself. And then Kyle would go meet with him separately, and the two of them would just sit there calmly. I remember one of their first meetings that they were meeting near my house, and so I rerouted my run route that night to run by the restaurant to see what they were doing. And the two of them were just sitting there smiling at each other when I ran by, and I was like, oh my God, they're just, like the story I start telling myself, right? Like they're making fun of me. I'm not going to do great. But it's like what, what he was learning from the coach was just how to be a calming force,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
access the stuff he was already good at, to sit patiently in a wheelchair or in his bed, waiting for somebody to pull the covers off and wake him up to start his day.
Yeah.
Like he was helping him access that so he could be an athlete too. So
Yeah.
yeah, when runners go by us and they see me pushing a chair up a hill, their instinct isn't to go, that must be much easier than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But
Right.
sometimes it
Right.
is. Like, sure,
Yeah.
physically, they're not doing what I'm doing. They're not
Sure.
pushing 100 pounds and up a hill.
You're right.
But emotionally, they might be carrying something much harder than I am because I just turn that off.
Wow.
My
Yeah.
mantra often is just listen. I just repeat that to myself because when Kyle starts barking at me sometimes, I'm like, you know what this is like back here? You push the chair, right? But if I'll listen, if I'm willing to just listen, he's trying to tell me something that I'm not willing to tell myself. Like you said, we're often our worst enemy when the way we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that's so powerful that you brought up one of the greatest gifts you can give to another human being. And most people find it one of the most difficult things to do, and that's to listen.
Hmm.
Because we so want everyone to hear our story, and we really don't take time to listen to theirs. And when you're listened to, we can't even begin to tell people the gratefulness we feel that someone cared enough to stop their own chatter and open up to what we have to share.
Hmm.
So you two have such wonderful dynamics going on, and the learnings that you're probably not even aware of all the things you've learned as a result of your being together. But let me ask you this. You've got people out there that are listening that are maybe in a position where they may be their own worst enemy because their narrative, their conversation, the story they're telling themselves is not putting them in a very positive space as Kyle was talking about. The positives got to outweigh the negatives, but if we're
Hmm.
not attempting that, we can get washed up in that. And so what would you suggest to them, since they may not have someone that's running with them in their life and they
Yeah.
don't have that opportunity? What would you suggest to them?
I would suggest to them just try something, just taking their first step because you never know how that's going to impact yourself and impact the people around you as well. So just get out there and just put one foot in front of the other and see where that takes you.
Hmm. Beautiful. 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 And Brent, do you have anything to add to that?
Uh, you know, I, it was beautiful. It was well done. I would lean into what I was just saying, you know, a moment ago. Like, what is the story you can tell yourself of what's possible, right?
Mm,
Or what you
mhm,
get to do,
mhm.
and if you can shift it from, I'll never finish this race to, I can't wait to finish this race. What does that look like? Like we're always thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Well, what's the best that can happen?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah.
I get to do this and that is the best thing for me.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
try that and see
Yeah,
how that sounds. You'd be surprised when you shift the story at what shifts inside of you.
amen. Thank you. Beautiful. I don't use that word a lot, beautiful,
Mhm.
but that's what comes to me
Yeah.
listening to the 2 of you and kind of washing away from me any kind of victimhood that I've allowed myself to get into. And, So I want to thank both of you for taking your time. The only thing we can't get back in life is our time, and you invested it with us. Special moment for all of us. And thank both of you for doing what you're doing and for allowing other people the opportunity who wouldn't get an opportunity otherwise to participate through the foundation. And how do people reach out to you? How do they find out more about the foundation?
Yeah, so they can visit our website, kylepeasefoundation.org, and that way they can connect all of our social channels. And then the application online for an athlete or a volunteer to come in volunteer with us and support the foundation. We are a nonprofit, so we greatly accept donations, and we very much appreciate that. So just visit kylepeasefoundation.org, and that's a one-stop shop for connecting with our organization.
Oh, outstanding, outstanding. Well, I thank both of you. And when's your next race?
And this race is April the 30th. We have
Oh,
a local 5K here in Atlanta, Georgia with our foundation.
all right. Well, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're certainly welcome. And thank all of you. You've got a lot of choices, and we very much appreciate you taking the opportunity to stop for a moment and to recognize wherever you find yourself in life is exactly where you need to be. And
Hmm.
as they've both shared, it's just a matter of changing your narrative. Instead of why me, as we've just learned, why not me?
Mm-hmm.
And why can't I? And
Right.
start looking for the blessings that are being offered in this moment. And you'll be amazed, as Brent said, about what you'll find out. And as Kyle said, which is just nailing it, do something.
Hmm.
Don't intellectualize your life away. Get out there and find out, as they have and are demonstrating. So thank you all. And I look forward to the opportunity for us to get together again. Take care, both of you, Brent and Kyle, and thanks again for being on.
Thank you.
you.